This is Bloomberg Business of Sports.
Sports is business. And whenever you are procuring talent, you must start with a criteria.
Being owners of this league and wanting our league to be the best in the world, how do we make it better?
The valuations are getting so high, the list of people who could purchase a team is getting really short.
We have 8 strategic investment areas when you look at the world of sports.
The NBA is already in 210 countries around the world.
NFL is an amazing thing for the sports betting industry.
We have the World Cup coming in 2026 to North America.
Hey, if I get $1 million for going to a school, trust me, I'll be there.
Bloomberg Business of Sports from Bloomberg Radio.
This is the Bloomberg Business of Sports show where we explore the big money issues in the world of sports. I'm Michael Barr. On the show today, we take a look back at some of our favorite conversations of the past year. We'll hear from NFL Hall of Fame running back Barry Sanders, Clutch Sports founder Rich Paul, and Vince Gennaro on Shohei Ohtani's blockbuster move to, well, the other side of Los Angeles. It is all straight ahead on this special New Year's edition of the Bloomberg Business of Sports. But first, we kick things off with soccer. It was a big year for the world's game, with superstar Lionel Messi coming to the U.S. and joining Miami FC, and of course, the Women's FIFA World Cup played over the summer. It wasn't long after the Cup ended that Scarlet Fu, Damian Sassower, and special guest host Vanessa Perdomo spoke with two-time Olympic gold medalist and two-time Women's World Cup winner Mia Hamm. Let's listen to a bit of that conversation, starting with how Mia has made the transition from soccer pro to soccer mom.
It was funny. My husband and I were just talking about this because we were laughing over, like, do you exercise now? Do you work out? Do you train? And what are all the differences? What do they mean? And I was like, yeah, well, training meant your entire day was dedicated to what you did. Now that you have kids, it's like you just exercise. You try to figure out what you can physically do in the day that correlates to some type of exercise, whether that's like dropping your kid off at a practice and then just walking around the block for 30 minutes. Once you have kids, everything is about them. Where when I was playing, it was everything I did was about my performance and helping the team perform its best. 10 to 12 hours a day, you're committed to your own performance and maximizing that so you can make yourself as good as of an athlete as and a soccer player as possible, and trying to make your team the best team it can be.
Scarlett, can you imagine Mia Hamm getting her workout by stretching at after school pickup? And by the way, Mia's husband just isn't any husband.
Yeah. This
is Nomar Garcia-Parra, former shortstop for the Boston Red Sox we're talking about here. But Mia, let me just ask you one thing. In between all of this post-retirement life you have, you're also a co-owner of the defending champion Los Angeles FC. I mean, what's it like to be the owner of a championship football club?
It's been a lot of fun. I mean, our ownership group and the managing partners are incredible, and their commitment, not just to the product on the field, but our community, and understanding that it's a lifelong legacy that we're trying to leave for the city of Los Angeles. It's something we want our supporters to be proud of every single time they come into our stadium or watch LAFC compete. We talk about our supporter section, the 3252. That's our heartbeat. That's the energy that in a long season, they provide the energy, and they show up every single match, both home and away. Not just with LAFC, but Angel City, we're part of that ownership group. So it's managing schedules as well.
Mia, I'm so glad you mentioned Angel City because it has a very unique business model. I mean, first of all, it's women majority owned. There are a lot of celebrities involved, Natalie Portman being one of them, Alexis Ohanian, not a woman, but still married to a very accomplished female athlete. The business model entails this 10% sponsorship model where each sponsor chooses a specific area of impact and works with Angel City to identify partner organizations working on that issue. Can you talk a little bit about that draw and whether this is something that can be scaled or duplicated across other professional teams?
I think it definitely can be scaled and duplicated for other teams, even here in Los Angeles. What I love is it's really easy to talk about Angel City and LAFC because I was saying we're we're both really committed to our community. We don't just come in and in the neighborhood of our stadium feel that we're there just for the 2 to 4 hours that the pre-game and post-game kind of excitement. Like, we're invested 365 days. I think it's important. One of the things I love about being involved in women's sports is this sense of mentorship, creating an environment where you care about not just the game, but the legacy that you're leaving. And what I love is our players at Angel City have embraced it incredibly well. And they feel it's part of their responsibility of being a part of this club, but just being a part of this community and of helping others and giving back. I love the fact that our clubs are so community focused and based. There's a lot that can still be done. And I know other teams are looking at us as a model to how to create that.
Well, yeah, I'm really glad you mentioned that. I mean, I think it's something that a lot of athletes, it's just ingrained in you guys, right? To be part of the community, to be more than just the athlete itself. You have the Mia Hamm Foundation that you work closely with the bone marrow transplant community. Can you talk to us about that and your personal connection with it?
Yeah, no, and thank you. This project has been incredibly personal for me. I've been able to partner with Insight to raise awareness about GVHD, which is graft versus host disease. And that's a potential complication of a bone marrow transplant. I've been an advocate for the bone marrow transplant community ever since my brother became sick and needed a bone marrow transplant. And I was kind of in a position, my family was in a position, we didn't know what to do, where to go. And we're incredibly grateful of the doctors and friends that kind of gave us direction and support through the process. So any way I can give back to this community and with graft versus host disease, it's really important for patients and their families who are going through a bone marrow transplant to kind of get as much information. So post-transplant, they can be proactive in their treatment. And we talk about, just if anything seems off, like if you're feeling a little sluggish or you notice a rash, talk to your medical team. Don't think, oh, it's no big deal. Preemptive treatment can help you kind of make the effects of graft versus host disease a lot less. So we encourage people to go to gvhdnow.com/fans, because these patients are in the fight of their lives and their families are an incredible support system for them. And we want them to know that we're cheering for them.
Great cheerleader, I'm sure, to have in your corner, right? Mia Hamm as your cheerleader. I love it.
Well, speaking of cheerleaders, Vanessa, let me build on that. I believe it was 1999, the FIFA's Women's World Cup. And I believe Garrett did get to attend, some of that tournament. But I mean, the Rose Bowl, Mia, 90,000 fans at the Rose Bowl in Pasadena, California, 2-1 penalty shootout victory versus China. Do you just think about that every day? Do you still think about those moments?
There's a lot of haziness to that because it was so gosh darn hot.
Right, weren't you? Didn't you get dehydrated at the end? I remember.
Oh, I was a mess at the end. I didn't get to go to any of the post-game celebrations. So when my teammates talk about it, it's like, oh, remember? And I'm like, yeah, no. They're like, oh, yeah, sorry about that.
It's all a blur.
Yeah, no, I was in the hotel room, like in the fetal position with IV bags going, where am I? But there are a lot of things you remember and you kind of giggle about it. I was at the Rose Bowl a couple months ago with Brandy Chastain, and people are like, "Oh, it was so cool." I go, "It was," but we had to warm up for the biggest game of our lives underneath the stadium in running shoes because the consolation match went into overtime. But it didn't faze us. We were like, all right, just another thing, that's cool. We'll get some touches right before the game starts. But what an incredible venue. And you're right. Just being a part of that tournament, being part of that team and creating history. And then you see what's happening to the game now and how many millions of people are able to watch women's soccer and the Women's World Cup in Australia. I thought, I was lucky enough to go and just to see the reception and the excitement in country. And then obviously watching it when I was back home, there was a buzz about it. And that's just going to make this tournament continue to grow.
That's women's soccer legend Mia Hamm. Up next, Detroit superstar, NFL Hall of Famer, number 20, Barry Sanders. You're listening to a special edition of the Bloomberg Business of Sports from Bloomberg Radio around the world.
This is Bloomberg Business of Sports from Bloomberg Radio.
You're listening to a special edition of the Bloomberg Business of Sports show as we look back at some of our favorite conversations from the past year. I'm Michael Barr. And when I say favorite, I mean favorite. He's one of the greatest running backs in league history, and he stunned fans when he decided to retire early. Barry Sanders addressed the early retirement and more in a documentary released this year on Amazon Prime. Bye-bye, Barry. Sanders took the time to talk with me and Bloomberg U.S. sports business reporter Randall Williams about his career, what he's seeing in today's NFL, and more. Let's take a listen to a portion of that conversation, starting on whether fans will find out why he decided to retire if they watch the documentary.
I believe, yes, that question is certainly answered in the documentary. I think it covers a lot. I mean, it's amazing looking at some of the footage. I don't know where they got some of this stuff, and they go back pretty far, but they certainly cover my NFL career and from the first day to the last. So yes, I think that question is certainly answered.
Now, Barry, I have a question for you. When it comes to the timing of this documentary, when you think about, you could have done this at any point in time, and NFL fans have wondered why you hung your cleats up for so many years. Why was now the time you wanted this documentary to release?
I think for me, it was just because, a certain amount of time has passed, just being able to reflect on it. Prime Video and NFL Network really wanted to get behind it, and make it happen. And so for me, I was just comfortable enough to sit down, really talk about it and put all the work into it that was required to be able to make it happen. They shot at so many different locations and talked to so many different people. But so really just logistically being able to bring all those things together, the timing was just right, sort of here and now.
Yeah, but I want to add a little color. Because like I said, I was born and raised in Detroit, and there used to be a mural of you by the bus stop. I mean, huge, on the side of a building, and there you are, number 20, Barry Sanders, and I used to look at that, and I think, man, he's on our team. And you had such, let me put it this way, a grip on the city. People adored you. What was that like? I mean, I know that sounds, it's like, oh, Mike, what kind of question was that? But it's true. I mean, people adored you in Detroit.
For one, I love that mural. That was just kind of sweet being downtown and seeing this huge image of me on the side of the building. So that was just kind of cool, But no. But to answer your question, no, I love having that relationship with the city of Detroit. It's a unique thing that happens. I mean, it doesn't happen by accident. And although I feel like we certainly didn't reach all of our goals on the field, a lot of fans feel like we had great memories and times there at the Silverdome. It happened organically, So yeah, I love having that relationship. And, hey, this is an absolute serious sports town. They're mad about their Lions. They've always supported them. And so, So I really appreciate that and really value that relationship.
Barry, how crazy is it that the timing of this documentary is also when the Lions are having their best season since 1960? That's incredible. I mean, you get the franchise's best player and an incredible season all in one. Is there better timing for this?
Oh, no, that's amazing. I mean, just the synergy there is awesome. And, we as Lions fans, obviously, we've been waiting for for this kind of a season from the team. We've seen it building over time. I don't know how the two have happened to sort of coincide in this way. But we're certainly glad that it did, and it has happened this way. Whenever they hired Coach Campbell, he came in with a plan, with a vision. He stuck to it. He and Brad Holmes, Sheila Ford, Chris Philman. I mean, they've known from day one the kind of player they want to have in the building. And we've seen every year this team take strides. And it's all sort of coming together this year.
Can you imagine if you had NIL when you were playing back at Oklahoma State? You would be off the chart right now. Forget about making the money in the NFL. You'd have made the money back at Oklahoma State.
Oh, no, I'd be one of these kids that are taking full advantage of, like, year 6 or 7 playing in college, man. I mean,
you would have had 10,000 rushing yards.
As many COVID years as I can get. So, no, that's true, though. I mean, it's great to see these kids being compensated. College football is still the greatest game out there. We've been having that conversation for how many generations now, right, about college players being paid. And just hopefully they get what they deserve. It doesn't tamper with the game too much. But it's better late than never. So congratulations to all those guys.
Absolutely. And I want to ask you a little bit about the running back market in general. It's changed so much since you were a player, and now the running backs are having trouble getting paid. Have you thought about any pathways to getting things back to where they used to be and really advancing their salaries so that, they can keep making money?
Oh yeah, I mean it's tough. It's interesting just to watch how the trend has sort of happened over the last few years. I personally still think that there's fantastic runners and running backs in the game that really impact the game that you need to win. But it is a business, and teams will they're going to put the money where they feel like they get most worth. It's a passing oriented game. And I don't know where this is going to go over, in the next 10, 20 years or whatever, but I look at guys like Derrick Henry or guys like Chris McCaffrey, Josh Jacobs or whoever. I still think they're guys from the running back position. Look at the Lions team this year.
Yeah.
They're well balanced. They run the football. And so, I still feel like you can look at a lot of teams and they need to be able to run the football. Their best players are in the running back position, and I don't know what you can do really to steer things in one direction or another. Certainly there's been, historic quarterback play. You can't deny Patrick Mahomes and guys like that, who are phenomenal players and deserve everything that they get. But not every team has that. And so I still believe in most cases you need to be able to run the football.
I do want to bring up probably one of the greatest events that ever happened at the old Pontiac Silverdome. God bless that place. I loved it. I was there. I covered it. And that was the 1991-92 NFC playoff game. The Lions.
Show your age.
Yeah, that's right, man. I was there. Lions against the Dallas Cowboys, and the Lions beat the living snot out of the Cowboys. And that is at the time when you had Barry Sanders, and I think you had Emmitt Smith. I mean, you're looking at this. You had a confluence of brilliant running backs in this game. Barry, do you miss the old Silverdome?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, you mentioned that game, and you think about all the elements involved in it. The Cowboys will go on to win, 3 Super Bowls in the next 4 or 5 years.
Yeah.
And that was our last playoff win. Man, that play, it was rocking that day, for sure. And I know we were excited and highly motivated. The fans came out in such a major way, that day. But to answer your question, yes. I mean, I always get a chance, here and there, just to be reminded from different fans about the Silverdome, and it certainly holds a lot of special memories for me.
That is all-time great NFL running back Barry Sanders. Still to come on this special edition of the Bloomberg Business of Sports show, Clutch Sports founder and CEO Rich Paul. You're listening to the Bloomberg Business of Sports, Bloomberg Radio around the world.
This is Bloomberg Business of Sports from Bloomberg Radio.
Thanks for listening to the Bloomberg Business of Sports show, where we explore the big money issues in the world of sports. I'm Michael Barr with a special edition of the show, taking a look back at some of our favorite conversations from the past year. Clutch Sports founder and CEO Rich Paul is one of the biggest sports agents in the business, responsible for huge deals for NBA stars headlined by LeBron James. Paul took some time to talk with Scarlet, Damian, and Bloomberg U.S. sports reporter Randall Williams about his career as an agent and some of his other business ventures. Let's take a listen.
So, Rich, I have to ask you this, right? I mean, look, you are the kingmaker, man. You've been dealing with Nike since the beginning of your relationship with LeBron James and through all your clients, I'm sure. I mean, you've even...
I've been dealing with Nike much longer than that.
Adopt, right? I mean, you went off, 3 former Nike executives. You have a wellness brand with them, a consumer products brand with them. So here's my question.
Doing very well, yeah.
Clutch Athletics, your own brand with New Balance. I mean, what does Nike think of that?
I think Nike respected it. I think at the end of the day, I'm an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
I can walk and chew bubble gum at the same time. For those that I represent and a level in which any brand wants to align themselves with them, I'm going to do the best job for the client.
Right.
I could have signed De'Aaron Fox. He signed to the Curry brand. Great. No problem. Right. I have clients at Nike and I have a few clients at New Balance. Our focus at Clutch from the brand side has been more on NIL. I have signed some football players and we'll continue to be active in that space, but it's a little bit different, right? And it's very selective. It's very strategic with our approach. We just signed a young lady by the name of Aaliyah Crump out of Minnesota, who is we're really excited about, and we'll continue to invest in the girls' game as well as the NIL space. But, at the end of the day, I just saw an opportunity. I felt like I didn't name the company Rich Paul for a reason, right? Rich Paul Sports or anything like that. I wanted to name the company something that could grow legs. And in this case, Clutch Brand and Clutch Sports Group are two totally separate companies. They just are able to share the same name because they were created by the same person. But in addition to that, I'm forever evolving. And I don't feel like I should be limited. I don't feel like I should be content or complacent in any matter or satisfied for that matter. I mean, look, we've been extremely successful despite, I had to build a company with one arm behind my back for a lot of different reasons. And I appreciate that because it just makes you stronger. But I'm not stopping there. I'm not going to be discouraged by it because at the end of the day, no one puts a limit on Bezos. No one puts a limit on Zuckerberg. No one puts a limit on, a lot of guys who continue to roll up these companies into a company that they've been able to build. And so I want to be the same way. I want to be able to sit in rooms with those guys as, respected peers, maybe not from a bank account perspective, because that's a little bit difficult to do, but definitely from a perspective, of, you just work hard. And the thing for me is one thing I love about it most, and the biggest joy I get out of it is, as you create these companies, it's not solely about the money you're making, et cetera. It's about the impact you're making, and it's about the opportunity you're able to give. Mm-hmm. And so instead of me having to necessarily, give somebody advice from a place of, I did it like this and I did it like that. And if you go to school, you can do this and do that. I can actually hire somebody.
Yeah.
And I think that's much more important than any magazine cover I can be on or any praise I can get. Giving someone an opportunity that can change their life, that can change the trajectory of their children's life, that can give them a different experience to better understand how life is supposed to be lived. That's a different place than where I come from, because where I come from, and you read the book.
Yep.
When you read that book, it is a different dynamic. I have friends that's never been downtown. Yep. That don't even make sense. Mm-hmm. And so that's what pushes me every day. And that's why, despite anything, look, God has blessed me and my family and allowed me to be extremely successful despite all the challenges. But at the same time, I don't look at it as a negative. If there's anything negative or any type, I'm vegan to anything beef. negative. I'm a vegan as it pertains to that.
So Rich, when you left, you said leaving CAA was, one of the best moves, the best move you ever made. I know you don't miss Vino, but do you miss Lloyd Fisher? No, I'm just kidding. I'm not going to ask you about Lloyd Fisher. But listen, I really need to ask you.
There's some good guys over there. He had
to do his own thing.
It's the opportunity. And again, I think no one expected me to be in the position I am today. And when I see guys, they're respectful. They may not like it. I'm sure there's conversation. I know for a fact there's conversations behind closed doors, but everyone has to respect it. And I gotta talk from a place of truth.
Rich, one of the things that I've heard you say, I think it was on First Take, is that when you were starting, you didn't have agents who looked like you open the door for you. And you mentioned a little, I think it was the question before, about how you are opening doors for the people who are coming behind you.
Yeah.
How are you opening those doors for people to excel?
Yeah, well, I think just to clarify, because when I was on First Take, people made about black agents. Mm-hmm. Let me clarify, there was no agents. There wasn't an agent I was working with. There was no plan. There was no strategy. It was just, hey, you somebody friend. Let's try to keep in position so the friend is happy. Yeah, but it was a little bit more love than that. But it was just no plan. Gotcha. I can't say it was a little bit more love than that, but it was just no plan. But it was no, whether you were black or white agents. When I came in the business, they were doing everything they can to assassinate my character, to discourage families. This is all public. There was an article written October 10th.
Yep, I remember it.
2000. There was an article written October 10th, 2012 that basically assassinated my character and tried to get me investigated and all these things. That was planted by my previous. That was planted. That was a strategic thing that didn't work, but I had to do an investigation with NCAA and everything. I understood the war within the game because I came from that. So I was basically like, okay, bring it on. But every day I lived my life that way, understanding that I was at war. So it was a different dynamic for me. But getting back to your question, today what I'm doing is I leave the door open. I really do. And my door is always open. In my office, my door is always open. Anyone who works with me, I like to say work with me, not for me. Anyone who works with me.
You think Leon Rose's door's open? Is Zach LaVine coming to the Knicks? I mean, what no, I'm just kidding.
No, that's not going to happen.
You got your answer.
Thanks for being so blatantly honest there, Rich.
Yeah, I think I leave the door open. And I think, and it's not just for people that work with me, even the so-called rival companies, whatever. I see young people and I talk to them as well, as much as I would someone who works at my company, because it's not really a competition. I think that's a fictitious thing. It's not really a competition. I don't see anybody, whether they were here 20 years before me or hopefully someone who comes after me based upon the trail that I'm continuing to blaze, have it better than I had it, right? Is able to be positioned better, perceived better, and things of that nature. But look, there was black agents selling parents, and still to the stuff that happens still to this day, you wouldn't believe it. There still hasn't been a conversation at the high level. People still don't want to work alongside you. People still don't want to, allow you to buy their businesses. They'd rather somebody else do.
The Rich Paul rule.
Yeah, I was just thinking about it when I was just getting ready for this. I'm like, it's crazy that people that you would talk to all the time would rather see and help someone else than help you. This is what I deal with every day. I've had NBA players call families and say, don't go with this person. Like, you should go with, and they don't have nothing to do with anything. Right. And they know me, by the way. They really should be like, if it's Rich, that's off limits, right? If it's company to company, then of course I'm a group for you. This is where I'm at. I'll speak well what I have. But if you know me, you've been in my house, you've been around my kids, etc.
That's kind of sick,
Rich. Then I'm not asking you to say, go to Rich Paul or anything. I'm just asking you to be like, you know what? That's family there. You may the best man win. Because that's how I am. I don't negative recruit. Yeah. I don't care to do that. Don't need to do that. Who's going to be for you is going to be for you. And I've always lived my life like that.
Clutch Sports founder and CEO Rich Paul on the Bloomberg Business of Sports. Don't forget, you can find every full version of every conversation on the show today on the Bloomberg Business of Sports podcast. A full year's worth of great conversations about the big money stories in sports can be right at your fingertips. Find the Bloomberg Business of Sports podcast on Apple, Spotify, and anywhere you get your podcasts. Up next, we look at a record-breaking sports deal to round out the year, plus a conversation with the commissioner of the WNBA. You're listening to a special edition of the Bloomberg Business of Sports podcast. You're listening to a special edition of the Bloomberg Business of Sports from Bloomberg Radio around the world.
This is Bloomberg Business of Sports from Bloomberg Radio.
You're listening to a special edition of the Bloomberg Business of Sports as we take a listen to some of our favorite conversations from the past year. I'm Michael Barr. Over the summer, Scarlet Fu spoke with WNBA Commissioner Cathy Engelbert at the Bloomberg Invest Conference in New York. Engelbert talked about how she's working to grow the WNBA at home and abroad. And here's some of that conversation.
Bloomberg's reported that combined league and team revenue is projected to reach $200 million this year, which would be about double the growth in 2019, or the total, I should say. The thing is, the players don't always see the full benefits of that growth. Base salaries as a share of total revenue shrank to 9% in 2022 from 11% in 2019. When you think about addressing this, does it all come down to the next collective bargaining agreement?
Yeah, so for those that didn't follow us, I walked in 4 days on the job and they said, you're going to Vegas to negotiate your first collective bargaining agreement. I said, collective what? So I knew the players were union, obviously. I knew the players had opted out as it was their right to do so. So we did negotiate a very progressive CBA at the time. Now we're 3 years, hence, and now the players want more because we're doing well. And I totally understand it. And those statistics you just threw out are deceiving because we have found every opportunity to put more money in the players' pockets. We're going to pay them $1.5 million in league player marketing agreements this year. We're finding ways. We put a $500,000 prize pool up for our Commissioner Cup in-season tournament. This will be our third year of doing it. We upped the playoff bonuses by 53%. I put a $4.5 million charter fund up this year. So we're finding ways that we know what the players value. They value mom benefits, fertility benefits. As we get into the next collective bargaining cycle, what we're trying to do is set this league up for 40 to 50 years, not just the next 5. Not only do we need the financial capital, but that'll give us the ability to get the human capital we need to, again, drive a new digital platform, marketing, because sports, when the NBA was 40 years in, they were still on tape delay. And what happened? They got a big rivalry coming out of college called Magic Johnson and Larry Bird, and that drove people to watch. And then a couple years later, what happened? Michael Jordan and the marketing machine Nike.
That's Cathy Engelbert speaking with our own Scarlet Fu. And to round out a big year in sports, we got the biggest sports contract in North American sports history. Elite two-way baseball's Shohei Ohtani signed a record-setting 10-year, $700 million deal with the Los Angeles Dodgers just a few weeks ago. And not to mention the Dodgers signing Japanese pitching phenom Yoshinobu Yamamoto a few weeks after that. We got instant reaction on the Ohtani deal from Vince Gennaro, Associate Dean and Clinical Associate Professor at the NYU Preston Robert Tisch Institute for Global Sport.
I have a sense that the $700 million number was a number, sort of a branding number that they wanted on this deal. But it is the most odd structure you could have ever imagined for an athlete deal. He's going to be paid $2 million a year for the 10 years that he's playing. Meanwhile, players out there of his caliber could be paid $40 or $50 million for that time per year, but he's being paid $2 million a year. Then, in the 10 years after the contract expires, he will be paid $68 million a year. Now, if you get the net present value of that deal, it plays a little bit more like a $45 million a year deal over 10 years, paid out evenly, 45 a year, right? Mm-hmm. So, the net present value is like $350 million, $360 million, depending on the discount rate you use.
That's Vince Gennaro, Associate Dean and Clinical Associate Professor at the NYU Preston Robert Tisch Institute for Global Sports, breaking down Ohtani's record deal. And that does it for this special edition of the Bloomberg Business of Sports show. Thanks for listening all year long. We really mean that. Thank you for listening to the Bloomberg Business of Sports for the entire team and my colleagues Scarlet Fu and Damian Sassower and all the great people behind the glass. Thank you so much. I'm Michael Barr. Tune in again next week for the latest on the stories moving big money in the world of sports. You're listening to to the Bloomberg Business of Sports from Bloomberg Radio around the world.